In just a matter of days, Hawaii will know who's going to move on from the primary election. Today, I have U.S. Senate candidate Ed Case. He is one of the top contenders to be our next U.S. Senator, and I want to welcome him on the show and point out that we did invite his opponent, Mazie Hirono, who is his opponent in the primary election, and a congressman. Ed, you were a congressman, and she is a congressman, so it's a congresswoman, so it's truly a battle of the powers that be.
I don't think anybody would ever call me one of the powers that be. But thanks for having me back on. It's been a real joy to be with you a couple of times during this campaign. I'm sorry you could never get Mazie to join us, but
I know. I was going to put a pumpkin here, but oh well.
No, that wouldn't be nice.
I know. All right. Well, nobody ever called me. You say nobody ever called you a powerhouse. I don't know if anybody, since I've become a journalist, has called me nice, but okay.
No, I said nobody's ever called me the power that be.
Oh, okay.
Powers that be. There's a little bit of a difference.
A little bit. Okay. Well, tell me about what's going on. I mean, what's happening? You're so busy.
Well,
yeah.
You know, as we tape this, we're down to 10, 11 days away from the primary election on Saturday, August 11th. And, you know, usually at this stage in a campaign, you know, everything builds to this point. You try to spend months and months and months getting the logistics straight, getting folks to work with you during the campaign. You're obviously trying to raise money. You're trying to do so many things, go out there and work the grassroots really hard, build critical mass in the campaign for your ideas, for your candidacy, and then the last month or so just goes by in a swoosh. And if you've done it right, and I think we have done this right, you're almost on automatic pilot at that point. I mean, I'm working very, very hard every day. We all are, but we've done what we needed to do to get to this stage. We've set the ground game. We've done a great job there. I think the message is exactly right. We're doing our last advertising. We had our one debate just a few days ago. And so at this point, it's just a matter of finishing out the 10 days and dealing with the inevitable surprises, attacks that come up in the last few days.
So when you get up in the morning, I mean, what's your day like? You get up, how early do you get up, and what do you start doing from the beginning?
Well, today I got up at 4 o'clock. I spent about maybe an hour or so just doing emails and you know, keeping in touch with everybody statewide, because that's really the only time I can do it. Then I went out and sign waved for a while this morning. And then had a couple of meetings straight off the bat when I came in off of sign waving, and just did a bunch of actually just basically meetings through the middle of the day. Then I did some grassroots in the middle of the day and the afternoon, did some walking of some business districts, and now I'm here with you. Dealt with your colleagues in the media on a couple of questions, trying to make sure that they had things straight, and dealt with my team in terms of some last minute strategy, and going to go out sign waving after this and then see what we're going to do after that.
So it's a very full day.
Yeah, full day, but you know, one thing that I've always enjoyed is campaigning. I do like campaigning. You know, it's funny, some politicians, they don't like campaigning. They don't mind being in office and everybody telling them how great they are all the time, and the privileges of being in office, but they don't like the campaign. Maybe they're uncomfortable with it, maybe they just don't like the hard work. And then some candidates actually like the campaigning, but when they get into office, they don't quite know what to do with themselves. And I've liked both, and so I'm happy with that, and especially in a grassroots campaign, and especially a statewide grassroots campaign, because a statewide grassroots campaign is just incredible. The number of different people that you meet, the number of different places in Hawaii that you get to spend some time in. Hawaii is an incredible place. I really wish everybody was able to have the kind of experiences that I've been able to have in the last a couple of statewide campaigns, to see the diversity of Hawaii, because it's deeply humbling, and it's also amazing to see this state in a way that many people just don't get to. So yesterday, for example, we were on Maui. Spent time with the Maui veterans and did some sign waving there, and just did some walking through business districts and shopping centers, just talking story with folks. That was a good day.
So you have the last time you were on the show, you were talking about, could you debate Mazie Hirono, and why wouldn't she appear in forums and things like that with you? Since then, you've had 4 joint appearances, not debates, and then one on Hawaii News Now where she actually agreed to go on, and I don't know if it was a debate, but at least it was a forum. How did you feel about that? Was that enough for the public to see?
Well, I think the last one was a debate, Hawaii News Now debate, and people can, by the way, see it. It's online still. It started Hawaii News Now, and so if you haven't seen that debate, then go look for it. And please watch it before you vote, or you can email me at edcase.com and we'll get you a copy of it. The 4 joint appearances were not debates. They were pretty tame, in all honesty. A little too controlled. The debate, yeah, it got there, but too short. By the time we got to even an hour and a half, there was so much, many people said, well, I got more questions than I got answers out of that. So I'm really sorry that she only agreed to one statewide debate, and that after a lot of, arm twisting apparently, and, months and months of saying no. Late, after people had started voting, probably intentional. So I'm not satisfied with it. I'm satisfied that there was one debate at least, better than none, but in terms of a full public discussion and comparison of us side by side, no.
What was the most stunning thing that came out of that she said, or most surprising thing for you? And also, what do you think was the most important thing that you said?
Well, I think from our perspective, the most important thing, trying to be objective about it, so I'm going to repeat what other people have said, is that I simply answered the questions and she didn't. I've always believed in, if somebody asks me a question on air, I'm going to answer it and get into the discussion of the issue that it raises. And for Maisie, she doesn't seem to be comfortable doing that, so she kind of had her set sound bites, and like everything would, if you asked her about, Seattle, Washington, she'd tell you about Houston. And so it was a little bit like that, and so I didn't think that, not that it was surprising, but it was pretty stark. So that's something that really stuck out to a lot of people was, and both the questioners, the what do you call it, the panel, and I, on several occasions asked her to answer the question because we weren't getting our answers.
So people are wondering, they're going to go to the polls August 11th, we hope. People will participate, or they're voting now by absentee, which started yesterday, and you went with Audrey to vote?
I did, and Megan Ansdell, our daughter, and she came with us, and so the 3 of us did a family appearance there.
And you said you have 4
kids? I didn't ask Audrey or Megan whether they voted for me or not. I hope they did.
If they didn't, they're in big trouble, right?
I'll never know.
That's right.
Or maybe I will.
And then you have 3 other children who can vote. So are you working on them? Have you given them your campaign spiel?
They've been so inundated with it for a long time now that I don't think I have to tell them anything. But what's interesting? When I always followed the rule with our children of never imposing my politics on them. For me, it was always about, hey, this is my life, but I'm not asking you to live my life. You live your life, and if you want to get interested in my life, I welcome you. And the only exception I call a command performance, which occurs maybe once every year or two, like please come, even though you may not want to. But what's been interesting over the course of my life, my life as being a father, is that the kids went out and lived their own lives, but as they get older, they're all in their 20s now. They're all quite interested in my life now. They're interested in politics. They're interested in government. They actually ask me questions about what's going on. One of our sons is in Japan, for example, and he's teaching in Japan, lives in Yokohama. And he actually called me the other day to give me some advice on the campaign. I couldn't believe it. It was wonderful. Pretty good advice, too.
That's good. That's really, that shows, because sometimes kids are funny. You never know how they're going to be, right? Especially when they're in junior high, they want you to drop them off and far, a couple blocks away and let them walk to school. So
no, they don't do that anymore.
They don't do that anymore.
They don't mind being seen with us. Yes, we're lucky
good.
In that.
So how about Audrey? She's been hanging on the trail.
Oh yeah, well Audrey is just an absolutely wonderful person to be out there on the campaign trail with. I really couldn't imagine doing everything that I've done over the last couple of campaigns without her. She is, the Rock of Gibraltar. She is steady. She gives me just incredible observations about what's going on. So she's able to it's a real gift. Very few people have it. The ability to actually be living in a situation so that you're reacting to it and your emotions and your feelings and your observations, but yet to be able to step back and say, this is what's really going on, to have that perspective. And I really value that perspective because, when you're in the middle of a campaign, it's hard to maintain your perspective.
Especially when it's you in the middle.
Well, that's what I'm, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, how do you step back and say, well, oh, Ed, you're doing this or that wrong? I mean, it's pretty tough.
Right.
And she does that, and sometimes she's gentle about it, and sometimes she's not, the appropriate level of firmness. And I think one of the things that I'm just really comfortable, really amazed at with her all the time is that she is just so good with so many different kinds of people. It's really incredible how she can turn on a dime and relate to people that if you ask them to relate to each other directly one-on-one, there's no way they can do that. And yet she can do it like that, just back and forth. So I really like when she's with me on the trail.
Now you're really taking grassroots to the max, because not only do you have your friends involved, but your family, your whole family is helping you, right? Tell me about that. Your father's your treasurer, right?
My father is my treasurer, and I hope
he's an attorney, right?
He's been an attorney for 60 plus years.
Right.
My father has actually he just celebrated his 60th anniversary with the same firm. So he's been employed by one firm for 60 years now. He's 92 years old. He still practices. And the other day, before one of our events, he actually came out and sign waved with me in Manoa, with my mother, by the way. And
I've met your mother, and she does all the requirements at the campaign headquarters. I've seen her there before.
She goes down to campaign headquarters, and so do my, my siblings, and we have a pretty extended family. And throughout Hawaii, members of our family are working in various parts. Audrey's family in Konamauka. My family in Waimea, and on and on and on. So I'm very fortunate. One thing about being a politician, it's good to have a big family.
Oh yes, absolutely. It's better than not being related to anybody, right?
Yeah, really.
Not many people can say that in Hawaii. So what do you think is the most surprising thing you've heard when you've gone out into the campaign world, when you've gone through your grassroots? Because you've stressed that you are doing more grassroots because you're having tougher time fundraising. You don't have all the big special interests behind you, you've said. So you've recounted on smaller donations from a lot more people and that kind of thing. Tell me, what are people telling you, and why are they giving you their support?
Well, I think that no matter where you are in Hawaii, you can be in Pahala or Hanalei or Pearl City, Kaunakakai. People have a sense that their government is not working for them. That's not a surprise to me, but what is surprising to me is the uniformity of it across many, many different differences, ethnic differences, income differences, geographical differences. It doesn't really matter. There is a wide and broad sense that government in general is unhooked from us, that it isn't us. And that's tragic, because it should be us. And I want it to be us. It must be us to really get the job done, and yet people just don't feel that that's true, and they definitely don't feel that of Washington today. And by the way, differences across party lines. That's one thing that everybody can agree on, is that Washington's not working, and it does need to be fixed. And I think that people are ready to look at it a little bit differently. Because what they've been told to do for decades now is to look at it from a pure party perspective, and the parties fighting with each other, and this is just a natural way. And the way you're going to fix the problem in Washington, if you're if you're a Democrat and the Republicans are in the majority, is to make the Democrats a majority, or vice versa. And I think people are ready to step away from that whole way of approaching it, because they realize it just hasn't worked. So the surprise has been the level of agreement on that. That wasn't true 5 years ago. I mean, I felt Washington was broken 5 years ago, or even 10 years ago.
But you had been in Washington
I'd been
working,
there, I'd been through it. I knew it wasn't getting the job done. The budget was going, into the tank. Many, many challenges were not being answered. The economy was going where it did after I left. So I could see it coming, but that sense of Washington not working was not translating. The other thing that is, again, not surprising generally, but the degree of is certainly surprising, is the concern over money in politics, because I think people think that has really, really gotten away from us at this point, especially with the super PACs and all of this money flooding the airwaves right now in attack commercials. And this is 10 days before the primary, so by the time this airs, it will have stepped up another couple of notches, and people are disgusted at that. And of course, that's related to Washington not working. So there's a downside and an upside here. The downside is the level of disconnect and distrust in government. The upside is that people are ready, willing, and able to do something about it.
It does feel like Hawaii is a little bit more empowered this time around and a little more anxious to vote. So we'll see what happens.
You have a number of races going on in Hawaii right now, very, very high-profile races that effectively turn on this exact issue. The issue is, do you think things are okay or not? Do you think things have worked and are working the way they are, or do you think that there can be a better way? Do you think that government is, of, by, and for all of the people, or just for a few? I mean, those are the fault lines of many elections in Hawaii today. Certainly the fault line in my primary election, because that is the difference between me and Maisie, fundamentally. It is certainly a large part of the mayor's race on this island. That is a central issue in that race. It is playing itself out in the 2nd Congressional. You want to take a look at the mayor's race over on Hawaii Island. There are elements of that there too. And you look at some of the council races and down to some of the state representative races, not all of them, but some of them are turning on a sense of a change in the political culture in Hawaii. And I think that's really healthy, because I think we do need to change this political culture. And I get myself in trouble all the time for saying that. That's why I don't get money from the political status quo. They don't like to be questioned. But nonetheless, I think that is absolutely essential going forward. So I'm hoping that the result of these races is going to be a common message from folks that they do want that change.
So is it power to the people or power to the powers that be, right?
Pretty much. I mean,
Yeah.
that is the way I see it, in a very simplistic way. I think that government in both Hawaii and Washington has really been dominated by a very few interests, and the consequences of that are all over the place. You don't see broad-based, publicly supported solutions coming into government. You certainly, and the decline in the voting is reflective of that. Because if people don't think they can make a difference, they tend not to vote. If they think they can make a difference, they tend to vote. And whenever we have seen high voting, it's been because people thought that they could actually make a difference in a race. And when we see low voting, maybe they don't even have a choice. I mean, I went to vote yesterday. There were 2 races that I didn't have anybody to vote for other than the incumbent, that or blank. So that's just not good.
So what do you say to people that ask you, what is the biggest difference between you and Mazie Hirono, or what do you see that contrasts you the most?
The ability to provide leadership for Hawaii and the country and the Senate over a generation. That is the central contrast in this race. It's about who can do the job. Clearly, I think I can, and I think I can do a better job than Maisie. But that's not me talking. I think that's the decision for the voters. And I think that although many elections, sometimes are fought in some people's minds over, liberal versus moderate versus conservative, or Republican versus Democrat, whatever. The fact of the matter is that it is about leadership, ultimately. And I think when we take a look at this particular race, the U.S. Senate race, we realize that not only is this about taking over for Senator Akaka, but likely for Senator Inoue. So, all right, so somebody can go up there and, work with Senator Inoue for however long he can serve, and I hope he serves as long as he can. But then they got to step up to the plate and run the ship. And that's a far different analysis. And I think also that this election for U.S. Senate should be and must be about national leadership. If you're in the United States House of Representatives, you obviously are expected to take care of your state, and the opportunities for national leadership are fewer and farther between, at least until you get fairly senior, even if you want to. And frankly, some members of Congress, actually maybe most members of the U.S. House of Representatives, choose not to become national leaders. They're content with the more parochial approach, which is important, but there's another element. The U.S. Congress is supposed to be an institution of national leadership, separate, independent, and co-equal of the presidency. And in the United States Senate, you can't afford to cruise. You just can't afford it. I mean, we just need national leadership right now. So the central contrast there is, well, who can step up to the plate and actually deal with the big picture challenges? This isn't about, working with Alaska on getting some joint pork. This is about solving an economy. This is about preserving Social Security. This is about the relationship with China. This is about balancing the budget. These are national leadership issues, and I believe and hope that that's what this election is going to come down to in the primary.
So what is it when you say that you can be a leader, and essentially that saying that Mazie can't be a leader? What is it that you see in her, or you don't see in her, that you think is important in terms of for our state?
Well, I think first of all, just a basic understanding of the issues and ability to sort them through and present them to folks and try to explain what the real issues are rather than sweeping them under the rug. There's a tremendous tendency when you're in politics because politicians for the most part don't like controversy, and I'm one of them. I don't go looking for controversy. I don't go looking for voters to yell at me. But if you've got a tough issue to solve, and we've already talked about some of the tough issues, even raising the issue, even talking about it invokes some fear, some hesitancy, and even some anger. Enough for somebody to go out there and say, oh, I'm not going to vote for you again, I'm going to campaign against you. Now, what do? Do you just go soft and silent at that point because you don't want to face that reality? The problem hasn't gone away. So I think that the one of the central contrasts between us is that I've basically walked point on a lot of issues over my time, starting with my state legislative days, starting with something that is topical again, which is the role of the Supreme Court in appointing bishop estate trustees, which I fought in 1995, and it's now being written about in the great book about Justice Edward Nakamura. I just don't think Mazie has done that. I think she's followed a safe path through 28 years in, being a legislator of some kind or another, and I don't think that's what we need right now. We need somebody who's really going to hit the issues straight up and try to solve them.
You can kind of see the safe path being crafted for her with her, very expert PR people who I'm sure are paid well of what they're worth because they're able to craft an image for her. And basically every time she speaks, every time she has a commercial, she talks about she had an abusive father, she fled Japan, she's proud of her mother, and so on. And it's basically the same speech over and over and over, the same commercial over and over and over. And I know the last time you were on my show, the handler sent out a little press release attacking you for mentioning how you thought it was. We talked a little bit about this, but you were saying, hey, I admire her mother.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I do. It sounds to me like Mazie has a pretty incredible mom.
Yeah.
And I admire her story. In all honesty, it reminds me of some members of my family. I mean, okay, we all have difficulties in our families. In my own family, my grandmother, my father's mother, her mother, so my great-grandmother was married and living a comfortable life when her father dropped dead of a heart attack at something like 36, 37, 40, I don't know what their age was, leaving my grandmother with 3 young daughters. My grandmother was 12 years old, and so that was a single mom in the early 1900s. And they basically went to a very difficult life. Moved from Chicago out to California, and amazingly, my grandmother ended up working her way through school and through UCLA, which was very unusual in those days. And then she came to Hawaii and married my grandfather. Now that was a difficult life too. Okay, so I can admire people that succeed despite great adversity, but that's not the end of the story, and that's my objection there. There has to be something beyond that. Okay, where did that take you? What were the accomplishments because of that?
Well, I'm the woman here, so I can say it. But how old is Mazie right now? Do you think about 55, 56?
No, Mazie is born in 1947.
Okay.
So she's 65, I think.
Oh, 65. Okay. Well, she looks young. There you go. I just complimented her. But anyway, I'm just thinking, because she talks about that when she was 3 years old, and if she's 65 or in her 60s, that's a long way in between. So I want to know, as a mom, as a single mom for a long time, what did she do between when she was 3 years old and 65 years old? What did she accomplish? And so I think that's a lot of that's missing. It's fine to tell your story, but at some point it's like, let's move on which is what you said to get in trouble last time, and talk about what the issues are, how you're going to vote, what are you going to do for Hawaii. Let's do that.
What have you done?
What have you done? Right. And what do you think? Because a lot of times I'm not really sure what she thinks. Well, I'd like to hear more about that. But of course she didn't come, so yeah, we'll ask the pumpkin. All right, so what do you want to tell everybody? You have 2 minutes and 33 seconds till the show's over. What do you have to say? What do you have to say for yourself?
2 minutes and 33 seconds, and it's the last show
before the primary.
Well, the first thing I want to say is please vote in the primary election on August 11th, in the Democratic primary election, because the choice is to be made there, and as everybody knows, all voters under our system can vote in whatever primary they want to vote in.
But just to be clear, you have to choose whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, or...
you have to choose a ballot.
You have to choose a ballot.
You have to choose a ballot.
You can vote for you in the Democratic primary, but on the back, the mayor, I understand the back is the mayor's election. You can vote for whoever you want because that's a nonpartisan race. And in fact, we have some nonpartisan race candidates that are up right now. So no matter what party you are, you can vote for them.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Because you go into the privacy of the voting booth, regardless of who you are or what you think. And by the way, most people now think of themselves more as independents than any particular party. And you choose which of those ballots, and you have to vote just that ballot. But for the nonpartisan races, everybody votes for those nonpartisan races. So the nonpartisan mayor's race is going to be on the back of every one of those ballots. And you fill out that ballot and send it in, and it's between you and your maker or whoever you want to tell which ballot you actually voted. But I can tell you for darn sure there's a lot more action on the Democratic primary side than the Republican primary. There's nothing happening on the Republican side. So make your choice in the Democratic side and then deal with the general. But, I think the main thing I want to just say is we'd like to ask people to take a good solid look at my candidacy. We've worked hard on this over the last year plus. We think we can provide that kind of leadership that Hawaii needs and the country needs over the next generation. We would love to have people size me up side by side with my opponent, Maisie, and make that call. We're very comfortable with that comparison.
And then should you make it through the primary, then you will have to contend with probably Governor Linda Lingo, former Governor Linda Lingo.
Should I make it through the primary, it will be me against, not probably, assuredly. And we will hope that Linda deigns to come on the show with...
I'm sure she will.
She said she will. As a matter of fact, Linda and I have already accepted a number of joint appearances to debates. Maisie hasn't accepted any of them in the general, but we're ready to go. I'm ready to debate Linda right across the state. I think that'd be a good choice for folks.
So people can see edcase.com and also hawaiinewsnow.com for the debate.
Edcase.com has a whole bunch of information on me, my candidacy, and probably too much. And by the way, some great recipes from Audrey. She's a very, very good cook. And yes, there's a Hawaii News Now link there. You can watch the debate for yourself.
All right. My pledge to you is if you win, you'll be back on after the primary. Thank you for joining us today, Ed.
Thank you very much.
And good luck to you. This has been News Behind the News. Aloha.